Today's narrative is gaslighting you. All right, okay, first I want to say trigger warning. All right, yes, this is new material. But more than that, it is a very long 5,577 words, mostly against Paul and Paul's message. So to all you Paulinians or Paulites, if you prefer Paul over Jesus, scroll on past this. This is not for you. I'm not looking to trigger you. I'm not looking to change your BS, your belief systems. That's not my job. My job is to find the brides and to ask the brides, please raise your baby as a bride. That's all. Look, I'm Team Jesus all the way. I am not ashamed of that. I am the bride who lives as an angel, stuck in a human vessel, currently in this enclosed, contained dome called Earth. Second thing, to all you Betsies out there, my imaginary friends, tomorrow is the Sabbath, and I'm just going to ask everybody to join me, please, tomorrow in front of the throne, or Saturday, whatever day you can celebrate Sabbath. But starting tomorrow at sunset until Saturday at sunset, I'm going to be in front of the throne with John 17. All 26 verses, John 17. I want you guys to know that it's considered the high priestly prayer. It was when Jesus had his final talk with his Father. His work was done. He was finished. And he was going back to the Father. I'm going to break down John 17 a little bit here today, but I'm going to thoroughly go through it tomorrow after I'm done in the throne room against what I came here to do, and that is to fight and bring into submission the dark angels and their legion of demons, every single rank of them. And if we brides don't come together and stop with religious nonsense and religious narrative and the works of Paul. The only thing Paul did right, because Satan and his dark angels have to reveal themselves, the only thing that's actually truth, even though it all sounds really good, it's all wrapped up in pretty paper, the only thing that's actual truth is put on the full armor of God. That's the truth. Why? Because Satan and his dark angels has to say that. So Ephesians 6, okay. If you need a little thing from Paul, go with Ephesians 6:12. Now, did I get Holy Spirit approval on slamming, ranting, and raving on Paul's work? Well, let's see here. You know how this goes. What's the count? 5,577. Well, let's just see. That is Greek for false witness and untrue testimony. So I'm going to go with Holy Spirit approval on that. You guys make of that what you will. But I'm a bride, so there is only one message for a bride, and that's the red letters. So let me pull back up my content and let's start going. On the gaslighting, let me just say before I start reading the content, did you watch the theater last night? Did you guys catch it? Are we understanding at this point the political theater is as weird, evil, and just worse than bread and circus? I wish I had bread and circus at this point. At least at one time Hollywood was bread and circus. At least one time Hollywood or politics or whatever it is, politics, was somewhat entertaining. At this point, the mockery on human intelligence is sky high. The theater that happened, in this country at least, last night by, well, I'll just say it, Elvis, yeah, that's my next video on that. I'll leave it at that. But if you think this bread and circus is anything other than theatrics and drama, mocking human intelligence, again, I'm not for you. All right? So, Jojo, move on. This is not where you belong. You belong with Pods and Plats that have 1 million followers who are paid well to keep you guys entertained. Oh, those Pods and Plats will throw around that they're a Christian. They'll throw around the name of Jesus, Savior, King, Christ. They throw that stuff around. But do they know the living word? No. There's some of them, actually, before I get started, are actually saying the war in Iran is a divine war, a holy war. Is that mocking your intelligence? Anybody? Come on, Betsy. Is war ever divine and holy? The war that Jesus did on his so-called Holy Land and on his so-called father, he came back in 70 AD. That's very well documented. There's lots of eyewitnesses who documented his return in 70 AD. What did he do to his Holy Land? What did he? Yes, there were generals in there doing his bidding, but it was annihilated. It was burned down to the ground. Jesus did not leave one stone on another on his temple that took 46 years to build. If that doesn't give you a message what Jesus thinks about religions, nothing will. You are become a PLF and your soul has been captured. Your spirit is fragmented and you're clutching to your Sunday services and this whole narrative of his second coming, of waiting to be a bride or in a wedding feast. John 17 overturns that very thinking. The 26th longest recorded prayer that Jesus says to his Father is all of John 17. That overturns the entire religious narrative. And if you can't see that, I'm gonna open a book up tomorrow, John 17, in front of the throne, on the souls that have been so fragmented, have been so destroyed, have been stolen and in a mason jar at the bottom of the ocean somewhere. I'm going to open a case against that. And I hope there's one other bride that joins me tomorrow on the throne. I can see you guys. I know who's there. All right, let me get started on my 5577 content here. Jesus tells you that you're his bride. In the longest recorded prayer in all of John 17, specifically John 17, 9 to 10. Let's read it. I will pray for them. I pray not for the world, but for them, which thou hast given me. For they are thine, and all mine are thine, and thine are mine, and I am glorified in them. Done. Period. It's done. Before he left this dome, we became his bride. Period. He came to make us his bride. He did it. It's finished. It's over. It's done. He accomplished his mission to defeat the satanic kingdom and to make source humans brides. Now, not every human is the soul of a human. Not every human has a human soul. So you got to keep that in mind. But on us source beings, us humans, that has a divine spark within. Okay, we were created back in Genesis 1:1. And that is who Jesus is talking to. The creation in Genesis 1:1. So if your clergy taught you this right here, if you actually spend time studying and reading John 17, well, religions couldn't thrive. There'd be no money to be made. Where would be the mammon? If you don't believe in their narrative, you're waiting to be a bride. No money for them. There's no mammon there. If you read John 17, every single red letter of it, what Jesus is telling you Well, he knew. Does he not know the end from the beginning? He knew the state of affairs today. He left behind John 17 to make sure you don't follow, you're not gaslit. He knows that's going to come along, the gaslighting. He knows that narrative is, because in him, everything's there's no linear time. He knows us living today will be 2,000 years down the road. But you don't think he is omnipotent? I can't even say that word. Omnipresent, let's put it that way. Omniscient? You don't think he knows the term being gaslit? Sorry, but Team Jesus knows he knows that. So why do Christians get away with thinking they are not a bride of Jesus, waiting for his second coming? When you spend time in John 17, take an hour. Right, just hang out for an hour in each of the verses. Let it last for 2 Sabbaths. Can we be patient enough? Can we be disciplined enough? Can we be obedient enough to say, Jesus took time to say this long prayer, and I want to know it to the core of my soul. I want every cell in my body to vibrate high frequencies to this prayer Jesus is giving to his bride. John 17, verse 11, it says we are one. John 17, verse 23 says, I and them and thou and me. What is Jesus actually doing here? He's addressing the ecclesia. He's addressing the church, your assemblies. Whatever your assemblies is called, he's addressing you. He's addressing the body. Today that body is called mostly church, whatever. In John 17, he's making it super clear in this prayer. He came and made us one with him. We are not of this world. Please read and reread that until that sinks in. Jesus himself is telling you, you're in him, he is in you, and you are not of this world. That makes you an NHI. That makes me an NHI. I've been claiming my status as an NHI for a while now. NHI, non-human intelligence. You are not of this world. Quit acting like it. Quit going along with it. Just stop. Stop the insanity. You are a NHI. You are a non-human. If you're Team Jesus, you are a non-human intelligent, period. You're his bride. Read verse 14. John 17, verse 14. Spend the Sabbath. It's going to be here tomorrow at sunset. What is today's date? Today is April 2nd, 2026. Find out who you are, who you belong to, and just stop being of this world. Jesus is telling you in John 17, his work was accomplished in his lifetime. It's in verse 4. I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gave me to do. Done. Over. Your religious narratives fall to pieces, 1,000,000 pieces at that. But you cling to the indoctrination of your clergy versus the living word. And certainly not Jesus. You're mostly hanging in all of Paul and his 2 disciples, Timothy and Titus. Gee, you don't think that's a coincidence? Paul has 13 books. He has 2 disciples teaching under him. That doesn't sound satanic, the number 3? Okay. Either believe the prayer of Jesus to his Father or believe the lies of the clergy. His work was done before he left the world. Jesus made his followers not of this world. Your soul is not of this world unless you require being gaslit into believing you are of this world. And you follow your favorite PLFs and PCs. And you live like Solomon told you would live. right? You're going to live on Satan's demiurge death cycle. Proverbs 8:36. But he that sin against me wrong his own soul. All they that hate me love death. Solomon knew that. The second coming of Jesus was seen and documented by many historians. I have all their books. Jesus had only one purpose on his second coming. What was that? Well, we read it in Matthew 24. To leave not one stone upon another of his so-called Father's temple. That's what he thought about his Father's temple. That's what he thought about religions. That's what he thought about religious authority. That's what he thought about narratives and being gaslit. Your assemblies and your temples is not how to follow Jesus. That is the opposite. Those assemblies of lies, perverting the living word, and following Satan's apostle Paul. Well, that's why we need a pole shift. And I'm hoping that's going to be any day now. I had a timeline shift on me today. That was a timeline shift, doesn't have symptoms. I've heard these crazy new age people or channelers or remote viewers talk about how you have to have all these symptoms for a timeline shift. A timeline shifted on me again today. It's harmless. There's no symptoms. There's nothing required to shift a timeline. That's going to start happening to most who basically begin to take back their spiritual authority. There'll be no trauma for you, okay? Don't be scared about a pole shift. Your consciousness can be taken out of your body in a split second. And you're back in the new heaven and the new earth that is a new dome called the land of the angels. That's where I'm headed. So, for people who think that Jesus is not in the present moment, well, you're stuck in the left brain and linear timeline. Jesus is present always in the moment. So when he tells you there's going to be false prophets, he means walking alongside his disciples and his apostles. But actually, because Paul was so bad and was perverting the message so badly from what the actual apostles of Jesus were saying, Paul had to get on a boat and go to other kingdoms, other realms, where none of Jesus' apostles were, in order to spread his satanic gospel. And Jesus told you that. Jesus is not, if Jesus wanted you to know something 2,000 years from where he was standing, he would have said that. Or you don't believe that? You think Jesus is that vague? Is he that fishy? Is he trying to dodge this thinking? Does he know you're going to be gaslit? Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. He was talking about Paul, Timothy, and Titus. Now there were others you can read, Josephus, Clement of Alexandria, Tacitus. There's plenty of first story historians you can read about how many were also walking around, whether it's in foreign lands or whether it was in around the disciples. The disciples didn't make it long, or the apostles, once they became apostles. They were martyred and killed pretty quickly. But there were plenty of people that stepped in and tried to act like them. All of that's available. I'm not getting into that today. But Jesus was telling you there would be people in the very days of his disciples that would be teaching alongside of them. Does that surprise you? Paul had, between Paul, Titus, and Timothy, that three opposing the teachings of Jesus. And of course, Paul has 13 books of Satan's opposing message. Christians follow desperately to their narratives. And it's mocking your ability to see the difference between Jesus and Satan's counterfeit. Jesus is only talking about his generation, his living disciples. He's not out in the future. He came to tell a message to living people on his second coming, and he fulfilled that. His second coming was about the total annihilation of not just Jerusalem, but the temple. Because his Father is within you. And his disciples did not go and preach to the lands Paul did. That is why Paul had to remove himself from the disciples with his opposing teachings that everyone follows. I call that the gaslighting campaign of Satan. Matthew 24:11, and many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Paul is the strong delusion. His lies that you follow to the demiurge cycle of death and rebirth, known as karma. But just like you'll read, if you actually read first century historians on the other teachings, not just Paul, but the Roman pagans, they loved Paul's letters. Paul was the best opposition to the pagans. To the pagans, they could do something to keep their pagan religions alive with Paul's letters. Paul is basically, once you understand Greek philosophy that Paul was well educated in, you can see where his teachings come from. It's Greek philosophers that loved their pagan rituals. You just got to do a little reading, and I understand that most people don't have time or the care to go back and find first century historians. But the pagans, the Roman pagans, they made sure that the messages of Paul and his two little disciples, that they outnumbered the teachings of Jesus, and they do. Jesus knew this would be the case, and it's the only reason he reminds you when he says, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Or when he will, put on the sorting hat and send the majority to the left with the goats. Don't you find that incredibly cruel? Why would he do that? Is he not making a point that Christians choose to ignore over Satan's message of grace and faith? It's called, again, being gaslit. And you love it like Isaiah prophesied you would, right? Isaiah 30 verse 10. You love it like Jeremiah prophesied you would, Jeremiah 5:31. All of the prophets prophesied it to some degree, so I'm not going to list all of them. Once you understand the concept, you get that gaslighting started way back when the prophets started writing. They didn't use that term, but they're telling you you're going to be gaslit, and you're going to love it. You're going to love the prophecy of deceits, and you're going to say, "Please tell me more lies. Entertain me with more lies." You like the gaslighting over the living word. Why? Well, you don't understand it, and you don't have time for it, and I get that. I get that. I have been blessed. My only job here for Team Jesus is to go through the concordance, to go through the lexicon, to know the Aramaic through and understand it and read it and try to condense it, distill it down in a version that you have time to listen to. Not many people have been blessed with that job. I take it seriously. I take every single day in the living word more seriously than I take human life, meaning my own human life. I'm not out trying to better myself or heal myself or any such nonsense. I am here for the living word and the message of Jesus Period. Jesus knew everyone would follow Paul over him. He told us that in John 7:7. Let's read it. The world cannot hate you, but me it hates, because I testify of it, that the works thereof are evil. That's what he thinks about your temples and your assemblies. Evil. He demonstrated what he thinks about your temple. Not one stone left upon another. He's telling you the works of this world are evil, so why do you follow it? All the works are evil. And you just follow everything over his teachings. With gladness, by the way, and you sing about it, for heaven's sakes. You go to Sunday assemblies and you sing for like an hour. And you pray out loud. Let's read some more on this, because it's just so much fun, Betsy. Do you agree? John 15:18 and 19. If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If ye were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, NHI, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hate you. Wait, hold up. Jesus is telling us we're not of this world, this dome called earth. So where are we from? Again, I will repeat, we're from Genesis 1:1. The world before this dome became a place without form and void, and the demiurge crawled out of it. That's not me and you, Betsy. That's not us. So listen, Betsy, maybe I'll just start calling you NHI. Instead of Betsy, maybe I'm going to give my imaginary friend, Betsy, a new name, NHI. Jesus came to wake up human souls. You're not from here. And you're acting, hold on, I've got to stoke the fire. You're not from here, and acting like you are is harming your soul's journey. You're stepping out of who you are. You're stepping out of your supernatural power, your clairvoyant, your clairaudient, your clairsentient, your telepathic, telekinetic skills, your God-given abilities. You are source. Source, that divine spark, is within you. Source is not in a church or in a university or in seminary, not in schools, not in labs, and not out in space, not on the moon. It is in you. Jesus' message is, do not be of this world. And no one is listening to him. If they did, they would not go to assemblies. They would take what he did to that massive temple that took 46 years to build in Jerusalem. They would take what he did to that temple, his so-called father's temple, seriously. They would say, well, if Jesus hates temples and assemblies and religious authority, should I follow in his footsteps? I mean, I'm saying I'm Team Jesus. I want to be a bride, or I accept that I am a bride. This is why I can't get through to anyone. Jesus is telling you, ye are not of this world. Ye are non-human intelligence. But we must remember this and hate the narrative of this world. It's all a gaslighting campaign to keep you focused on the narrative. John 3:19. And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. When you follow huge pods and plats, this is what you're following. And that is not truth. Jesus was super clear about our timeline. He knew exactly what the Christians, so-called followers of Jesus, would be following instead. They are known today as the pods and the plats. That is idolatry, and it's the new pulpit. 1 John 4:5. They are of the world, therefore speak they of the world, and the world heareth them. John knew the pulpits would come along and be called pods and plats, podcast platforms. Today, John knew that pulpit would exist. And again, please give an entire Sabbath, John 17. Just please do that. And ask, why is Holy Spirit, Jesus, Source Creator, telling us in all 26 verses that you are not of this world and that he was not of this world? Before Satan started his gaslighting campaign, he got that knowledge from Isaiah. Isaiah was the bride of our Creator. Isaiah told us it would happen, gave Satan a heads up. Thinking back, was this a good plan? Well, everything has a purpose, does it not? Everything has a reason. You gotta understand the campaign, satanic campaign on you. Today's generation, they call it gaslighting. Maybe they call it catfishing. I don't know. I don't know what a catfish is. I had to look up gaslight because I didn't grow up with that term. I myself didn't know what gaslighting was. I'm gonna read up what a quick internet search, how they define gaslighting, because I just didn't know. I had no idea. Anyway, what did Isaiah say about this in 30 verse 10? Which says, to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceit. Satan knows this verse, and he started his campaign. This is spiritual law. The entire ranks of the satanic dark kingdom, that world, can only follow the living word. And they must counterfeit it, turn it upside down and backwards. Here and there enclosed contained dome. They know every verse, and they will counterfeit it or deliver it verbatim, as Satan is doing with just this verse right here, Isaiah 30 verse 10. So fast forward. Paul lives around 700 years after Isaiah. So here Satan waited to find the right guy. That guy was called Saul the Butcher. He was perfect. He was infested with legions, plural, 12 to 24,000 demons, most likely laughing, smiling, enjoying, butchering people following the way of Jesus. Unlike the actual apostles, who could not be infested with demons, Satan had to find a new host. Why? Because Jesus defeated the satanic kingdom. Now Satan can only use brides. Now he must pervert the bride out of thinking that he's not a bride. Satan had to have his counterfeit. Satan had to oppose all of the teachings of Jesus while dressing it up with holy words. Paul's words have got a lot of good terminology. There's a whole lot of Jesus and the Christ and the King and Savior. It's wrapped up. His lies are it's a tedious, subtle wrapping, but it's there. Because we want it to be there. We love that our salvation is just because we believe, by grace and faith. How do you think Howard Pittman ended up in hell? He was a pastor, by the way, that had a large congregation, who never, by the way, when he was saved from hell by Jesus, ever turned over the teachings of Paul. his last and final death. I pray for him every day that he's rescued from that. Moving on. Grace and faith directly opposes Jesus telling you, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Only Satan can send a strong delusion. That would be his demons and his dark angels flying around in plasma ships. Our people call UFO a UAP now. Okay, they're plasma ships, and they can materialize in solid metal form, but they're interdimensional, and it's Satan's craft. And the Christians, are stepping up. Oh my God, it's end times eschatology, end time prophecies. It's end times. Here comes a strong delusion. The alien. Oh my God, the alien card and the strong delusion. Listen, because you're not taught spiritual warfare and how to pray in front of the throne and open cases up against this. That's why you believe Paul. That's why you are a follower, and now you're paying these pods and plats on their end times prophecy. They're calling this war divine and holy. Oh, we got to set this up, or Jesus can't come back. You can't be bothered with history that Jesus returned in 70 AD. Again, don't be surprised when you stand in front of the throne, when you do leave this human vessel, and Jesus says, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Every Christian follows Satan's apostle, Paul, without question. In the days of Paul, and here we are 2,000 years later believing the strong delusion we call politics. Politics. We follow religions. Can you imagine how Jesus is feeling that all his brides are following religions? And indoctrination we call education. It's all gaslighting. And today, people are paid tens of thousands of dollars monthly to build their pods and plats in their studios and their gigantic microphones to put you on the demiurge cycle. And for some odd reason, humans love it. Why? Because they're of this world. They're directly opposing what Jesus told you, that you are not of this world, as he was not of this world. Back to John 17, let's read verse 6. "I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. Thine they were, and thou gavest them me, and they have kept thy word." All right. It's finished. Hands down, it's over. Let's applaud and move on. We have been given to Jesus. He made us not of this world. Let's stay right here, John 17 now, and let's drop down to verse 14. "I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world." You're here for only one reason: to know who the dark angels are, to know their ranks, to know their demons as a source human. You are here to expose them and, like Wizard of Oz, pour water on the wicked witch and melt them. But as long as you attend their systems, as long as you keep voting on your politics, as long as you keep making the dark angels leaders over your towns, your villages, your cities, your countries, they mock you and win and are allowed to rule this dome because you're simply failing at being a source human. Jesus sent you and I, NHI Betsy. He's not coming back a third time. He sent us. And if you're not doing your part, that is legal permission to open a book against you, your children, and your entire bloodline and make you a PLF that eventually will degrade into an NPC. You're background filler people. I guarantee you, if you're in an assembly that's got over 500, and Jesus forbid you have over 10,000, if you don't think that those are PLFs that are put there to make you think, well, if my church I go to has 10,000 people or 5,000 people, my church is so big that my 10,000 people in my community all believe in that pastor and the way he wants to disseminate the living word. I mean, I can't be wrong. I must have to follow Paul, because there's 10,000 people in here that's loving my pastor teaching us in Romans today, or Corinthians, or Colossians, or whatever. If you can't understand those are PLFs, all for the purpose of your soul, if you've been placed in a church that has 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, if you don't understand they're all there to capture your soul, then you've already been caught. Those are filler people to make you think this must be true. I think long and hard about that tomorrow on the Sabbath. It's all filler people. There's probably only a few source souls. So if they tell us we have 8 billion NPCs, it's probably more likely out of 8 billion, there's only around 500,000 actual brides, actual people with this source, divine spark within soul. And the whole rest, your entire city, may be there to gaslight you. In other words, you're Truman, and everybody else is just in on the show. How hard is it to get out of the gaslight? I'm asking you. It took me years in the living word to get out of this snare. I'm just now seeing today for the first time, as I was writing this, which started days ago, three or 4 days ago. A video doesn't come without I can't even begin to tell you the kind of study I do to narrow it down to a few verses that I feel makes the greatest impact. I studied 153 verses with the word lie in it. None of which I'll put one here, but you get my point. I don't come at this without discipline and obedience. I'm not delivering this content that I haven't invested 12 hours a day, a minimum of 3 days, most of the time 4 to 5. That's not bragging. That's saying I don't want in any way to misinterpret. I'm looking at it from every angle I can look at it. And I'm distilling it down so that it's a quick lesson while you're doing dishes or driving home or whatever. That's the point. So I'm just now really seeing for the first time, I've read John 17 many times, but it didn't hit me. The living word is always expanding. You need to read a verse hundreds of times, and each time it will tell you something different. It will deliver telepathically. The living word delivers a telepathic download, if you will. It comes in through all of your senses. You're engaged visually and with auditory and with the feeling, with the concept. It's Aramaic. You get a coat of light all of a sudden shine on you, and it's a aha moment. John 17 tells you the work of Jesus was done, it's finished, but we have scales on our eyes, and we need our clergy so desperately to teach your 5-year-olds. I'm sorry, we need our clergy so desperately. Let me say that again. Please teach your 5-year-olds John 17. And let your 5-year-old, once a day, it's all it takes. Once a day, let the 5-year-old, or whenever people start reading today, I don't know. The kids are probably very gifted. Maybe they're reading before they're 5. I don't know. But the point is, as soon as they can read, sit down and explain to their, intellect what they're reading in John 17. If we could get one generation to grow up with John 17, with that knowledge of who they are, who they belong to, and it's not of this world, it only takes one generation, guys. That's all it takes. If the 5-year-old knows to the core of its being and has it seared on his consciousness, her consciousness, has it just pulsating through its heart and mind, that 5-year-old can never be gaslit. You're never going to steal the mind, the heart, or the soul of that baby. Listen, parents, get out of their way. That 5-year-old needs to know you're not human, you're source. You have spiritual authority regardless of your age. You are a non-human intelligence and came here for a purpose, to live for Jesus and continue to do the work Jesus did. Because right now, no one understands their spiritual authority, and the dark angels are not in submission, and they should be. The only reason they are not in submission to humans is because humans will not accept who they are. The humans have been so gaslit over 2,000 years. The humans are waiting for the nonsense called the rapture, the nonsense of a marriage feast, the nonsense of that you're not a bride, the nonsense that you're born in sin. That has to come to an end. Listen, NHI, source human. You were made in Genesis 1:1. Get back to that. Get back to that knowledge, get back to that awareness, and it's going to take a year of Sabbaths for you to get back. I've already obtained that. That's been restored in me. And I'm telling you, it will be restored in you if you understand you're gaslit and you pray diligently in your closet, in your heart, for the gaslighting, for the satanic campaign on your soul and your spirit and your mind and heart to be removed. Every single tentacle to be removed, not just on you, but you're always praying for your bloodline. Always include those words, your bloodline. Because you're the only one alive right now that can do that. And it's the sole reason you can. If you don't know what your sole purpose is in life, it's your bloodline, period. If you just act and pray and work for your bloodline, there's nothing you can accomplish more as a source human in this dome. There's other purposes in other domes, but in this dome, it's on the bloodlines that Demiurge has in his machine called the moon. You teach your babies you are perfect. You are born upright. The divine spark is within you. You are a bride. You are here in the work for Jesus. He sent you here to raise your babies as a bride and begin a generation of no longer being gaslit by the people of this satanic, cloned, NPC, PLF, cesspool consciousness that we call today the Epstein files. Please learn from their trauma, from those babies' traumas. Do something about that. All I can do is encourage and inspire you. I can't walk. I can't go outside and hold up a sign on the street corner. I'm doing what I can do. We all have different, what's the word I want? Abilities. You do what your abilities allow you to do. You just stop sending kids to school. You stop sending kids to Western medicine. You stop voting. You get rid of you rent a bulldozer, right? I'm not kidding now. You just get rid of everything. You turn over, go through the city government, get rid of the elected officials. You stop going to sports. You stop idolizing sports and entertainment and music and celebrities. You stop going to amusement parks. You stop participating in their circus on your soul. And you literally bulldoze down all the assemblies, whether they're called schools or universities or temples, churches, malls of consumption, and yes, evil Hollywood movie theaters. Do you know the amount of witchcraft and sorcery that's coming through those screens that you call a movie theater? Do you have any idea how thick the principality is over those buildings? Bulldoze it down. Get rid of it. It just stops. We, the people, outnumber the dark angels. If you stop, they have to submit. And you'll see all the leaders in the country put their face to the ground. Their theater ends. Quit saying get your popcorn out. Just stop that. That nothing angers me more when I hear people say, get your popcorn out. Now, yeah, they're telling you it's a movie, it's a theater. But that attention to that theater, instead of doing something about it, that's following a podplat. That's following a narrative. That's saying, yeah, I'm gaslight me some more. But make it entertaining. The 99% love the strong delusion. They want the lies, the prophecy, the deceit. They don't want truth. The fact that everyone is loving the gaslighting, and I know they are because all the podplats have 1 million followers, and their views in 24 hours is usually over, 100,000, 500,000. All right, for my generation, which is called baby boomers, I'm going to tell you what I pulled online, the term gaslit, because I really didn't know what the term meant. Okay, here's what it said. Being gaslit is a form of persistent psychological manipulation and emotional abuse, where someone makes you question your own memory, perception, or sanity. The manipulator distorts reality, denies events. Did anybody see our so-called leader, theatrics, last night? If you can't see this in that, 40-minute theater, then move on. Distorts reality, denies events occurred. Or events occurred. That would be the moon landing way back then and so-called going around it right now. Denies events occurred or twist facts to make you doubt your feelings and instincts. It is used to establish power, control, and dependency. Key indicators of tactics of gaslighting: outright denials, claiming events never happened, or that you are imagining things. Again, going to the moon, anybody? Reality distortion, challenging your memory, even when you have proof. Trivializing and dismissing, saying you're too sensitive or overreacting to invalidate your feelings. Blame shifting, flipping the script to make you feel responsible for their actions. The reverse victim-offender tactic. Isolation and distrust, undermining your confidence to isolate you from support and make you dependent on them. This is given to you. What you see, your very own perception, is given to you. We are trained what to see, to keep their narrative theirs, not your own. Today's Christian narrative is fooling all of the Western world. The Western world is so far removed from the living Word and Holy Spirit, and that's really sad to say. At the least, the fact that the Western world, how removed collectively you are from the living Word. You're talking puppets. You call clergy for mammon. On the stupidity that the pop plats are saying, oh, here comes the mark of the beast, here comes the Antichrist, we're going to build the third temple, we're going to slaughter the heifer. Oh my God. This whole waiting on the second coming, that you're waiting to become a bride, it's all big business. It's just money. Follow the money. And most people do follow it because the living Word is simply too complicated. It takes obedience, discipline, and time, a lot of time. And you being still and as quiet as you can on the Sabbath in prayer and in the Bible. When you're about nothing other than religions over actual knowledge of the teachings of Jesus, you're all following Paul, the blind leading the blind. If you actually know the teachings of Jesus, you would see clearly the letters of Paul are in direct opposition of Jesus. And those words are dressed up only as Satan could do. It's subtle opposition. So no human can really see through Satan's lies. Like the Pharisees in the days of Jesus, when he walked the land and destroyed the temple and all of Jerusalem with it. All of this is only to keep the 90%, 99% dumbed down, asleep at the wheel, never independent thought, never ask questions, just follow the pod plat that you pay for. You follow those pod plats. And what they're all about. And again, today's narrative that everybody's jumping on board, end times eschatology. That keeps money flowing through their temples and assemblies and endless names and narrative that feeds loosh to their god, the demiurge, archons. They call him Jesus, the poplats. They'll throw their name around, King Jesus. But they follow and they preach on the teachings of Paul. It's Satan's greatest victory over your puppet strings. These poplats you subscribe to and pay, they keep you tethered to a demiurge, to a death cycle. Today's religious narrative that you guys act like you're holier than thou with your poplats and big mics, and that you will say you will clutch to the Bible, to your very grave, no matter what. Why? Because you don't actually read the living Word and follow. Instead, you're following your assembly's narrative. The poplats that have over 500,000, that's a sold-out soul. That's a paid actor, period. They hold up each other by weekly having split screens and agree with each other's stories. It's all theater. And they love their Elvis president, do they not? Until you read the living Word every waking hour of your days, for years on end, however many years it might take you, until you read every book ever pulled out of the Bible and all of history, at least going back to the Tower of Babel, right? The biggest religious lie is Nimrod built the Tower of Babel. He did not. Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, his kind built telepathically, telekinetically the Tower of Babel for one reason, to destroy the demiurge, to put a crack in the dome and hope that it falls out. The fact that no one, not one podplat, And they seem intelligent. They look intelligent. They sound, everything about them oozes intelligence. But man, they hop on that Nimrod built the Tower of Babel so damn quick. Nimrod's nowhere. The name Nimrod's in 4 verses in the Bible, none of which is in Genesis 11. But the gaslight, that gaslight campaign is so strong. It's a runaway train. You can't stop it. At this point, when it comes to a religious narrative, just no intelligence is needed. Their demons step in, and it's subtle. But a bride sees it for what it is. The demons will not allow for you to have any power. You're born in sin. Just bow your head and accept that your God made you a sinner, you're broken and evil, and must wait endlessly to be redeemed. Oh, and yes, that redemption requires your God must bleed out on a cross. That cross, that yoke you wear on your neck for the whole world to see you're a Christian, to see how broken you are. Blood? Really? That's what you've reduced our Creator down to. He needed to bleed out for a species he created in sin. Is that actually your take on the Bible? If that is, even if you just stick to the 66th book that the pagan Romans decided was the only holy books of the Bible, really? You're going to believe a pagan Rome? You're going to follow, okay. Oh, yeah. And worse yet, that was also, given the upper hand, given the holy approval by the transgender popes in the day. When they were making, do you know what it was like in Rome in 325 AD when all of this was decided? Have you read that? Do you know about the transgender popes and their, cross-dressing girlfriends? Have you read that? If you want to keep following Rome, you might want to look at a little bit of their history. You might want to understand what Rome stands for. Rome supports their transgender popes. If you actually read any history whatsoever, it was those popes and those Roman pagan generals, governors, whatever their title, they decided Paul was their God. And they follow Paul, who opposes Jesus. Why? Because it fits a pagan narrative. It was Paul that said, make man dominant over women. They like that. The pagans like that. Jesus doesn't teach that. Jesus never said that only man should preach the gospel. Yeah, I get that his apostles were all men. That had to do with the custom of the day. You need to understand the custom of the day to understand. Jesus had to follow a culture and a timeline that he was in. Why do humans, if not infested with demons, so easily accept they are born in sin? Is that what you're telling your toddlers? Instead of teaching them, they can, with all their abilities, telepathy and telekinesis, to mention a few. Gather, just two. Gather, when you gather with other toddlers in the neighborhood, let them teach each other. Their natural, I guess I want to say, wisdom as a bride will come through. So, switching a little bit of content here, let's now go to Matthew 8 and read verse 22. But Jesus said unto him, follow me, and let the dead bury the dead. Why does not one follower of their religions question this? Why? Not one of them asked, why would Jesus say this? How many times in the concordance did Jesus say, follow me? In Matthew, he says it 5 times. Now, that 5 times is repeated in Mark and Luke, and it's said 5 other times in John. So does follow me include anything about a bloody death process? Well, let's read them in Matthew, right? He says, follow me in Matthew 4:19, follow me, I will make you fishers of men. And then we already read Matthew 8:22, let the dead bury the dead. Matthew 9:9, he makes Matthew his disciple, follow me. Matthew 16:24, he says to deny ourselves and take up his cross. We brides took his cross. We do not need him to bleed out for us. We are brides. And we are taken out of that knowledge by a religious narrative. Lastly, in Matthew 19:21, Jesus says, sell all you have and give to the poor. Is that what your religious assembly todays are doing? Do you see them selling all they have and giving to the poor? Is that what we are seeing on every corner? We should be giving to the poor. If you just count the number of churches in this country, there should be a nonstop daily of giving. No one should ever need for anything because we're all following the teachings of Jesus. Everyone's fed, everyone's clothed, everyone has shelter. The world is fine. Is that your city? It's not my city. I live in Sedona. We're about 6 miles in between 2 mountains. And no one is on a street corner here giving out clothes or money or food. Do you know how many churches? I should do a Google search on that. If I can remember the next video, I'll count how many denominations are in this tiny little town, how many church buildings we have. It's insane. The amount of real estate, incredibly expensive. We're talking, you're not going to buy, a half acre of land in Sedona for under $1 million. All right, land here is in the millions. Not one church, not one synagogue, not one temple, not one is out in their massive parking lots, feeding anybody, clothing anybody, giving money away, not one. I can't imagine if you live where I used to live, like Cincinnati, and the sheer amount of denominations and buildings you have. Is anybody helping anyone? Is Matthew 25 being demonstrated by any church building, any assembly? Where is Matthew 25 in your town? That's called gaslighting for mammon. Your clergy just needs your idolatry. The religious narrative is pure hypocrisy and downright evil. All right, so not one so-called demiurge theologian today has ever had the discipline to go beyond their indoctrination they call cemetery training. And actually just read the living word. And, the 90% are choosing that indoctrination. Why? Because they are of this world, in this world, not knowing they're an NHI. They want indoctrination over Jesus. You're following them, and worse, allowing your children to follow them. It's why Jesus said, pick up his cross. That means you follow Jesus, not Paul. I'm sorry, did you think Jesus didn't know Paul was going to come along? Did you think that Jesus didn't know how many books would outnumber him in his living word? Did he just miss that? When Source Creator, his Father, sent him to this dome, did he not take good enough notes? Was that redacted somehow out of his mind, his soul, his spirit? Paul had his head cut off in the middle of tribulation. The 7 years of tribulation was from 63 to 70 AD. Paul's head was cut off by Nero Caesar, who makes up the number 666, which all of the Jews knew. They know gematria. They know the value of the letter of a Hebrew word that I call Aramaic. They know exactly what 666 stood for. It was about their life, their town, their temple, their people in that day. The tribulation was from 63 to 70 AD. And Paul's head was cut off by Nero in 67 AD. Paul wasn't hung on a cross, unlike Peter, who was requested to be turned upside down on a cross. Unlike Andrew, who requested that the cross be put in a form of an X. Does that strike you as odd in today's most popular social media? So here is how the religious narrative today has you brides, extremely disempowered. It only serves the demiurge and the stealing of your soul, and you love it. You will follow it to your grave, no questions asked. I have not seen one single person question, for example, on podcasts, way back years ago when I tried to watch a few of them, mostly on the supernatural paranormal, but they were Christians, so, I felt it was safe. I wanted to see the Christians start coming out of their supernatural fog and acknowledge angels and demons. And they would have the best researchers, the best authors, books that I have on my bookshelf right now in this video. And even the best of the best of the best can't figure out Nimrod has nothing to do with Genesis 11, Tower of Babel. It's, wow. The people are trained to follow assumptions. You guys know what that makes us, right? When you follow assumptions, it's making an ASS out of you and me. Assumptions. It's just gaslighting you. So if you're following a narrative that says this, your soul will go to the death cycle. I already read it, Proverbs 8:31. Right now, the Paplats are telling you this war in Iran is holy. They're telling you it's a divine war. I ask you, Betsy, NHI, does war sound holy or divine? Did Jesus say that war that he came and did was going to be holy or divine? Did he say that? Wow. When I hear these podcasts do this, holy divine war, this is beyond ignorance. It's a legion of demons inside that person who says war is holy or divine. Those podcasts who say this are being so well paid to put their face daily for hours. Big mic in front of them on the screen, and the whole world celebrates them. Why does no one follow Jesus' words? Why is everyone waiting for his second coming? When he told you specifically what would happen. He was super clear. He didn't dodge that question. Yeah, I'm going to come back and I'm going to destroy the temple. He hated their religions. Right? Again, you can read it for yourself, Matthew 24, verse 1 and 2. Do you really think our Creator within is not in the present moment? Do you really think you're waiting now, 2026 years later, for him to finally come? Where is the intelligence in that thinking? Jesus said he would come in his generation. The fig tree generation was in his timeline. Again, my Jesus is not vague. He's not insincere. He's not fishy. He's not dodging questions, right? He is clear, insightful, and to the point to his creation. Do you really think Jesus wanted us, you and me, NHI Betsy, to wait 2,000 years? Is that what you think Jesus wants us to do? Do you think he's testing you? Why do you think Jesus would tear down a temple that his people, by the way, found incredibly holy and sacred? His people, on his land. So, the basic facts and the lies of Paul that I will make a point every day as these podplats keep building and getting bigger with and they're building their case on the lies of Paul with the strong delusion. That's how they're building their case. So I'll make a point, not that my comment matters at all, but I will make comments on what you are doing to yourself and to your followers, because it's karma. You're racking up. The more followers you have, then the more paid subscribers you had. That I don't know how many 25,000 year cycles it will take to get you off of the demiurge. All for a little fame while you're here in this dome. All for a little mammon, a little money while you're here in this dome. Why do you not want to become why do you not want to go to dome worlds that you're actually from? Why not go back to Genesis 1:1? Well, you're showing Jesus for sure. I love being in this world. I love being human. I love waiting for Jesus. I love the ways of this world. No, I'm going to get a bigger microphone than that last guy has. I'm going to get more followers and subscribers than that last guy has. Is that the message of Jesus? Do the red letters tell you to do that? Paul does. I will fight you brides on the rest of my time here. You're destroying the bridal kingdom for mammon. You're actually destroying your babies for mammon, a religious narrative of a basic Bible fact. And again, I'll just use the 66 books that the Roman pagans decided was your canon. I'll stick to that. I won't go into my Bible, which is the cipher of 87 books that also has the Apocrypha and the Chinook, like books of Enoch and Jasper. So I'll just stick to the KJV, which is all of my content, by the way. You hardly ever see me veer away from King James Version. I'm going to start going in and giving teachings from my book, from the other. My Bible has 87 books. I'm going to start doing that. I've done it a little bit. Gospel of Thomas and so forth. Here's where I paused and I decided to do a Bible study on the word lie. The word lie is in 153 verses. Does it surprise you that Jesus only, 153 verses, and Jesus only uses the word one time? Only once. Guess what that is? It's about religious authority. The Jews, his people in his day, he used that word one time, and it's in John 8:44. Why? Jesus cannot lie. It's not possible. But religious narrative is so dependent on the lies of Paul. Your heart is full of Paul over Jesus. It feeds your demons, and it makes you money to believe the strong delusion is coming. Do you see the Dark Angel Demon Playbook? Let's start way back in Roswell with our most famous alien crash and start a psyop that will work well for us, the satanic force, to gather more loosh than ever in history on life in this dome, on and over humans who do not and will never know they are a bride, that the divine spark of the kingdom is within them. Let's make religions explode into every type of narrative so we can put our demons and animate the human psyche to follow. So let's take away the Bible from humans and have them follow our narrative, our gaslighting campaign, that we will train our clergy, our talking heads, and put them in the pulpit and tell them they are born in sin and they need us for salvation. Since we, the demons and dark angels, can travel in time, we can prepare for the incoming internet and take that screen time and further our psyop. And we can find other talking heads that will feed an alien agenda. We will call those who know a bit of truth conspiracy guys and label and tag them, and those who tell our narrative on all aliens are good guys, like Ashtray Command Outpost, will make them famous. And we'll send money their way to keep the narrative of the white hat saviors are on the way. Now that's going to work for us for at least 30 years. 30, 50 years, that's going to work. Once all of their channeling and their predictions begin to be seen as lies or compliance to the lies, then we'll ramp up. Then we'll go back to the Bible and we'll start with the end times eschatology, and we'll really show ourselves in the many shape-shifting forms that we can manifest, as well as false lights, to keep everyone knowing the truth that the ice wall is cracking right on scheduled time, looking to the sky for their Jesus to return. That will make our talking heads, pods and plats at this point, money and loosh for us to store in our man-made, precision-engineered moon. This will corral the humans, herd them towards their assemblies, they call temples, houses of worship, and we show ourselves. And the supernatural is part of their everyday life. And they have no answers. And fear is at an all-time high. As we expand the moon and bring it closer to the earth and the water levels rise and we begin our demonic flood and we make our narrative on this natural cycle, feed our generator on their ignorance, let's keep the talking heads as disempowered as possible to feed Team Satan while funneling money to them so they keep end times prophecy alive and real. Go Team Satan. I was speaking as a fallen angel told me the psyop. I have them under my submission and I make them tell me their playbook, and I was speaking on behalf of their playbook. Why? To give you a little look into what books they are opening on your bloodline in front of the throne. I listened to that in front of the throne. Your narrative depends on the contradictions of Paul's teaching. Let me just show you just one contradiction of Paul. The first one is found in Titus 1, verse 2. Let's read it together. Titus 1, verse 2. In hope of eternal life, which God, that cannot lie, promised before the world began. Wait, Paul, get your story straight. To Titus, you're telling us God can't lie, but to the Thessalonians, not only can God lie, he's going to send a strong delusion. That's what you said in your second letter, 2 Thess 2:11. To Titus, God can't lie. But no, to the Thessalonians, not only can God lie, but he's going to send a strong delusion. Which is it, Paul? We can't have it both ways, can we? I'm doing a dramatic pause there, but I need to get a drink of water. So your narrative you call Team Jesus is actually Team Paul. At no time did Jesus say he's going to send a strong delusion. At no time did Jesus say, I'm going to make you believe a lie. Does that sound like your King Jesus? Here's what Jesus does say. And I say this, it's Hebrews 6:18. I don't believe that a man wrote Hebrews just like I don't believe a man wrote Job. God has his angels write Job, every bit of it, dictation from creator source, just like it was dictation an angel wrote down for all of Hebrews. That's just me. That's just me. It's what I as a bride see. Here's what Jesus does tell us in Hebrews 6:18. We will have strong consolation. So we contrast that. Paul's going to send a strong delusion. Jesus is saying that we're going to have strong consolation. Okay, let's read it. That by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have a strong consolation who have fled for refuge to lay hold upon the hope set before us. Only demons depend on a narrative, especially a religious one, that will convince you you're not a bride, the kingdom of Holy Spirit is not within, that we are waiting on our Savior for now over 2,000 years to return. That is how little you think of Jesus. He keeps his people, his very creation, waiting endlessly in this evil dome, in this evil, infested Epstein file cesspool of consciousness. That's how little you think Jesus thinks of you, let alone your babies, let alone for your babies to be eaten after whatever else was done to them. God forbid, I can't even go there with that. You have put Jesus in a narrative box to make you money. And I'm speaking to you, potlatts. You have put Jesus in a box to make you money on your end time BS eschatology you call prophecy, not caring about the million of souls that you are dragging to hell, called the karmic cycle. You throw the name of Jesus around like he is your puppet instead of following his actual teachings. You do not have time for the living word. You only have time to put your face on a screen and unleash your demons on ignorant people who blindly think we are headed to end times prophecy instead of truth. You're actually calling this war holy and divine. Jesus knew you would. And it's why he had to tell us in Matthew 7, depart from me, I never knew you. But it pays well, doesn't it? It pays well for you to ignore basic historical facts and the teachings of Jesus, of which there is no waiting to be a bride or a marriage feast. That is not what he said. Jesus said the kingdom is within us. We are born of bride, a divine spark. But you are doing what Isaiah prophesied you would do. I already read it. Isaiah 30, verse 10. Everything that John writes in Revelation was completed in John's timeline. It was completed in John's life before he died. He saw all of it. It was all done by 70 AD, and he was told he would see it in Revelation 22, verse 10. You're taking the time is near, clergy, potlatts. The time is near, and you're saying add 2,000 years to that? To only serve a narrative of mammon against Jesus. You say you serve. You're making Jesus into a liar. Jesus completed his work in his fig tree generation. If Jesus was going to send you a grand deception, an illusion, do you think he forgot to tell you this? We just read Jesus cannot lie. He would never lie to his creation. But your willingness to overlook the teaching of who you call your King Jesus over the satanic opposing teaching of Paul, that's what your club supports? And again, I get it. You're being paid well for it. Paul is your club's pop platforms. Your pop plat support Paul over Jesus. You willingly accept the opposing words of Paul. Then even God will send a strong delusion to believe a lie. That is what you believe. That is words of the demiurge. And you're following a dark, fallen, evil God over the teachings of Jesus. I will wrap up with the famous scene. Keanu Reeves, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but the Matrix guy, he played an alien in the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. right? And there's a famous scene. I'm just going to pause this fire because I'm afraid it's going to go out. Okay, it's not going to go out, so I'll put it. Anyway, so there's a famous scene before the alien's going to kill all the humans of Earth. He goes to meet with another alien in a McDonald's, right? So it's Keanu Reeves and some Asian guy. And he goes to meet with him. And I'm going to tell you verbatim their conversation. Because that's where we are. I'm going to tell you the conversation. If you want truth, go to Hollywood. Every movie is a documentary. So let me just recap this little scene in a McDonald's. Do you wonder why they chose McDonald's for this scene to play out? I'll give you a guess, and you're not going to like it. It includes human DNA. All right, so Keanu walks in and starts a conversation with the little Asian guy. You have been out of contact for a long time. Yes, I have been given a dangerous assignment. This is hostile territory. I noticed. I was hoping I could reason with them. I am afraid they are not a reasonable race. I have been living amongst them for 70 years now. I know them well. And, Keanu says, any attempt to intercede with them would be futile. They are destructive, and they won't change. Is that your final report? The tragedy is they know what's going to become of them. They sense it, but they can't seem to do anything about it. It's decided. Then I will begin the process as soon as possible. We should make preparations for our departure. Now, they say a few more words, but in the end of the conversation, the bride/alien wants to die with his human family. He's enjoyed it. He has enjoyed his life as a human, as tough as it was, as much gaslighting happened. He loves his human family, and he wants to die with them. So we got that to look forward to. Anita K. Owens Potter out.